kingdom. And how do you see this? What's your reaction on it? And how do our country see this?
Look, I think it's extraordinary at multiple levels. First, there is the fact that he is not of English or Scots or Anglo-Saxon origin. He is from a different race, namely he's of Indian descent, and that's visible. He's brown-skinned in a country where perhaps 85% of the population are white. And that's really something which is remarkable, to have a person of this kind of background becoming Prime Minister of Britain. The fact that the British have outgrown their own centuries of racial discrimination, which they practiced in their colonies during their empire, is a remarkable development. I would say the second significant thing is that his religion is also different. In England, there is an established church. It's the Anglican Christian Church, which is the official religion of the state. Even though they are otherwise a secular government, there is an official religion. Rishi Sunak doesn't practice that. He's an overtly practicing Hindu. He took his oath as Chancellor of the Exchequer on the Bhagavad Gita. He'll probably presumably do the same thing as Prime Minister. He is somebody who has publicly, even when he was campaigning for the leadership of the Conservative Party, he tweeted pictures of himself performing a Gau Puja. He tweeted pictures of himself praying to Lord Krishna on Janmashtami. This is a man who is completely public about his Hinduism in a country where this has never been seen in a Prime Minister before. It's always been Christian. Even Disraeli of Jewish origin was Christian when he became Prime Minister. And somebody pointed out that recently in the Queen's funeral, the then Prime Minister Liz Truss read out from the Bible. Will Rishi Sunak do that, they asked. And my answer is, if he's the kind of Hindu that most of us are in India, he would have no problem reading the sacred texts of other faiths, because we Hindus are brought up to respect all faiths. So I think he would do that, but I'm just saying it's still a very unusual thing for the British to overlook. The third factor is his age. He only became an MP for the first time in 2015. Within 5 years, he'd become Finance Minister, Chancellor of the Exchequer, and within 7 years, he's Prime Minister. It's an astonishing growth, and I was just thinking that in India, a 42-year-old MP with 7 years' experience would be lucky even to be an MOS. That's our country. So you can see that for Britain, they have outgrown their racism. They have shown a tremendous willingness to absorb and admit people of other religious faiths. And on top of that, they have looked at merit and not age or experience in deciding that he was the right man at a time of economic crisis, somebody with the right financial background and experience, who did a good job as Chancellor of the Exchequer during the COVID pandemic. And they said he's a safe pair of hands to steer the British economy through these difficult times. Merit and ability seem to have been the only criteria for the Conservative MPs who elected him to be their leader. And all of these are lessons for us in India. I would say that we should ourselves be prepared to look beyond some of the considerations of caste and religion and class and language and region and all these things, and recognize that what the country should always reward is merit.
So how do you see, as in point of view, from the India's point of view of
Look, Rishi Sunak is a Brit. He is Prime Minister of Britain. His job is going to be to protect and promote the national interest of Britain. I think it would be wrong of us to expect anything else, and it would be foolish of him as a British Prime Minister to give any particular concessions to India merely because his grandparents were born in undivided India. I mean, the fact is that he has obviously an affinity for many things Indian. He's married an Indian citizen. His in-laws are the Narayanamurthis. He has all of these connections, but he is still British, and we should not expect anything else. I would say that, for example, one of the pending issues before his desk will be the Indo-British trade agreement. He will negotiate with Britain's interests in mind. We must negotiate with our interests in mind. Would he be more prepared to make concessions? I don't know, but I would certainly not believe we are entitled to expect it because he happens to be of Indian origin. What I think we can say, as Prime Minister Modi has said, is that there are some affinities that should make the dialogue very easy and perhaps even affectionate between them. But we've also had very good, warm relations with white British Prime Ministers in the past. Look how friendly Boris Johnson was when he was Prime Minister. So let us not assume any special favours out of Britain, and nor, I think, will an Indian origin Prime Minister want to be seen by the British public as giving special concessions to India. No such expectations. He will be a good Prime Minister for Britain. We must, as Indians, look after India's own interests ourselves.
Last question is to you, and very important and pertinent question is that you are talking about merits, not caste, religion, You tweeted about also that a visible minority is getting a chance to become the Prime Minister. What do you want to say from
No,
that?
look, I'm aware that obviously during our own government we had a Sikh Prime Minister in a government that whose ruling party was led by a woman of what the British might call an immigrant. We don't use that word very much in India, but that was the background. Nonetheless, the truth remains that the Prime Minister being a Sikh was not seen by most Hindus as being particularly different because, after all, within India, and the Hindutvavadis also argue this, that Sikhs, Hindus, Jains, and Buddhists all come from the Indic religious traditions. Their Punya Bhumi is this land. The Hindutva ideology, which is now ruling our country, has, however, treated those whose holy lands outside India, namely particularly Muslims and Christians, as different. And they have treated people from those backgrounds as somehow less qualified to be in this, what they see as a Hindu Rashtra, than we historically have in our party and in other liberal-minded parties. So my question is, a party like the BJP, which doesn't have a single Muslim MP in either House of Parliament today, which is a shocking situation that's never been there in our diverse country's politics in the past, will that party ever allow somebody to become Prime Minister? And I say Prime Minister, not President, because President is a ceremonial position where people can be appointed from different backgrounds. But Prime Minister is where all the power is. Can the supporters of the BJP imagine a Prime Minister of another background, even a BJP chief minister from, say, either the Islamic or Christian faiths? I doubt it very much. And I think it's important for us to recognize that when many of us of the Hindu faith talk about tolerance, and in the case of Swami Vivekananda, they even spoke of acceptance, how far are we prepared to accept that there are Indians whose holy lands are outside India who have as much a claim, as much a right as citizens of our country to aspire to the position of Prime Minister as Rishi Sunak did in Britain? I remember when Sonia Gandhi ji won the 2004 elections and her victorious coalition invited her to be Prime Minister, how the BJP reacted then. And we remember a BJP leader threatening to shave her head and go on dharna outside Parliament if that were to happen. Let us remember that that is India today. Those people of the BJP have been in power since 2014. And I just wanted to remind them that there are lessons, all sorts of lessons we can learn from Rishi Sunak's ascent in England, but this is also one of them.